The fallout in Dallas is going to be what? What's your estimation on that?
I think like if you ask Jerry and Stephen Jones, their preference would be to keep the staff in place completely.
Well, Dan Quinn's Dan Quinn is the hottest candidate. Period. I think. I think if there's 1 and 1A, I would go Quinn and Brian Flores. Right? Wouldn't you say that now?
Yeah, Quinn and Brian Flores. I think you could throw like Nathaniel Hackett's got some heat. Brian Daboll, I think, is starting to build some momentum. But
right.
yeah, I think it's fair to say that Doug Peterson's got some too. But I think it's fair to say Brian Flores and Dan Quinn would be at the top of the list. And look, like I think that's part of what it is in Dallas right now is, would they like to keep Mike McCarthy and his full staff in place? Yes. Is that feasible? Maybe not. And, I think like whereas, at the beginning of the year, I think most of us, that cover this stuff and talk to people, have talked to people in that organization would tell you, oh, yeah, maybe eventually they move on from Mike McCarthy to go to Kellen Moore. The more I've talked to people about it over the last couple of months, it sounds like that maybe has changed to would they move on from Mike McCarthy to go to Dan Quinn. That's how much they like him and the job that he did in fixing their defense and developing young players like Trayvon Diggs and
Parsons
and Micah Parsons. And, you look at it too, Rich, and this becomes that because he's got all this interest. I think he's probably the favorite in Denver. He's going to interview with 4 of these teams. He turned a 5th team down. And so, I think Jerry and Stephen have to ask themselves these questions. And it's not just, are we okay with Mike McCarthy coming out of this year? It's, are we okay with Mike McCarthy going forward if we lose both Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn? And if we are in a position where we might lose both of them, is there one of them that we would rather have as our head coach than Mike McCarthy? Right. And I think that's really the question they got to ask. And I think Quinn's done an excellent job there. And there's no question. I think you look at the job he did in Atlanta. It's not like he was a failure there either. So I think his second shot is coming. I think there's a good chance. We're looking up, and Dan Quinn's the head coach of the Broncos. In a week. But the question I think becomes whether or not the Cowboys really feel like Mike McCarthy is the guy going forward to make the next defensive coordinator hire, to potentially make the next offensive coordinator hire, or is it worth doing something to keep Dan Quinn? And they've been here before, right? Like, so they were here with Jason Garrett and Wade Phillips. They gave Jason Garrett a huge raise. Here's the other nuance that people I don't think are paying much attention to.
Okay.
They really can't give Dan Quinn a raise because he's still getting paid by the Falcons. And so there are offsets there. So Jerry and Stephen, where they've thrown money at this sort of problem in the past, it isn't really going to work that way here because of Dan Quinn's contractual situation. So to me, it's just sort of a fascinating spot for the Jones family to be in. But I can tell you unequivocally, they love Dan Quinn and they'd hate to lose him. And I think the question becomes now, how much would they hate to lose him?
Well, can't they pay him more than what the Falcons were, what the offset is? Can't they just go? But again, why do that for what? Is Quinn really going to say, all right, I'll take that much more money to stay here and be the DC and not get back as an HC and all these other places that are falling all over themselves for me? And then again, Stephen Jones, it seems like the Jones have already made this decision. Stephen Jones went on local Metroplex radio yesterday and said that, look, we've heard owners give votes of confidence verbally before, and that in a token will get you on the old subway. But so this has got to be done now, right? Like this is a developing situation, as Bill Pito used to say on ESPN.
Yeah. And like I said, I think that the overwhelming likelihood, the likelihood is that Stephen and Jerry are going to follow through on what they've said, and then Mike McCarthy's back as the head coach next year.
Wow.
But I just think that their feelings for Dan Quinn, I think at least add a layer of intrigue to this. And, again, like I've been told by multiple people how the Joneses have really kind of fallen in love with Quinn and the job that he did. And, I just think it's fascinating because I do think when we get to the end of this, Quinn could have multiple offers to be head coaches, to be a head coach in different places. And he's got a standing relationship with George Payton, the GM in Denver. In fact, if they had ever decided to fire Thomas Dimitroff and keep Dan Quinn in Atlanta, George Payton would have been the GM in Atlanta. So there's a standing relationship there. I think Quinn could wind up getting, again, an offer to somewhere else. And, it sort of puts the Cowboys in one of these situations where it's like, how much do you really like the guy who's walking out the door? My guess would be they would stick with McCarthy and just sort of find a way to deal with it. But I don't think that it would be the easiest thing in the world for Jerry or Steven to watch Dan Quinn walk out that door.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.